Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 11th meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we always introduce ourselves. And a second matter of formality is we ask everyone that would so desire to participate, ask a question, make a comment. But we do ask that you identify yourself because under the open meeting law, this is being recorded. So again, by way of introduction, my name is John Kiernan. And let me go right across the top. Philip, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, Philip Driscoll, Conservation Clerk.
Arthur Doyle?
Arthur Doyle, Conservation Member.
Hans?
Hans Van Lingen, Commission Member.
Charlie?
Charlie Bosworth, Commission Member.
Tom Palmer?
Tom Palmer, Commission Member.
And Ingrid?
Ingrid Beatty, Commission Member.
All right, I think we're ready to go, folks. Welcome to all. Number one on the agenda is Milton Neponset Estuaries Surveying Project by Apex Environmental Partners. Arthur, do you want to do an introduction?
Happy to do so, Mr. Chairman. We have with us Jamie Villette, who is the Senior Project Engineer at Apex Companies Environmental Partners on this particular project. Jamie, welcome aboard. And Jamie's going to give us an overview of where things are today. She and I collaborated in making sure that all of the abutters to the marsh received notification of the surveying that was going to take place. We did that on December 18th of 2024. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you, Arthur. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Jamie.
Great. Again, my name is Jamie Villette with Environmental Partners. I'm the Senior Project Engineer on this project. So just to give a little bit more background, within the last couple of years, the town transferred approximately 33 acres of land abutting the Neponset River estuary to the Conservation Commission. The commission received CPC funding to complete an initial study and conceptual design of the 4 town-owned parcels and a portion of privately owned land encompassing Black Rock. So that's where Apex comes in, and we've been working with the town and Arthur to begin the initial planning efforts to restore the Neponset River estuary as a public and recreational space. So the first phase of this project is to survey this area and assess existing conditions. And then the second portion of the project, we are going to be preparing conceptual design alternatives. So as Arthur mentioned, we were out on December 18th, which also served as our in-person project kickoff for the Neponset River concept study, where we did notify residents, and then we also did a site walk of the trails, the existing trails. First, we walked out to I believe it's previously the Mount Hope Canal bulkhead, and then went along the trail towards Black Rock. So since December 18th, Zenith, who we've subcontracted as the land surveyor, and they've completed their field survey of the town-owned parcels and the small privately owned portion. We did work with the private owner to get access to perform the survey and access this portion of land that's not town-owned, but it's still part of the study area. And we received the final survey files, I believe, last week. And Zenith completed their in-field survey January 24th. And so we received the files, I believe, around January 31st. The survey electronic files are now under our internal review, And once we finalize our existing conditions assessment, we will use this survey as a base to develop the conceptual design alternatives. And then our final deliverable will include a technical memo, engineering cost estimate, and a conceptual plan based on the town and conservation commission's feedback. So ultimately, at the end of the project, we'll be presenting the conceptual design alternatives at a public meeting, a date to be determined. And I think that wraps it up. But Arthur, let me know if I missed anything, and I'll be happy to take a few minutes here to answer any questions.
You've given a good overview for us, and we thank you for that, Jamie. And let's see if there are any questions from any commission members.
Yeah, I have a question, Jamie. You said on a date to be determined. Ballpark, are we talking a month or two, or are you talking longer than that?
We expect to complete the work in the next 8 to 10 weeks now that we've received the survey. But we still have some internal coordination to do. So with that 8 to 10 weeks, you will have to factor in some additional meetings internally with the project team to check in, make sure we're headed in the right direction with our conceptual design alternatives before presenting anything to the public.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Jamie, just for clarification purposes, the 8 to 10 week period is for delivery of the conceptual design. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes.
Okay, and will we be able to have access to the survey files once your internal review is completed?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. And when might that be? Do you have a rough estimate?
In the next week or two.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
In the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Good, thank you.
And regarding the survey, a couple of questions. First one is private landowner. Is that Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Yes, it is.
And is that in Quincy or is it in Milton? Or
So
both?
they're on the Quincy side. So this project does encompass a portion of Quincy. It's on the Quincy Milton line. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, their parcel address is 1 Enterprise Drive in Quincy.
Okay. And a different but related question. As part of the survey, were any markers placed? For
No
the boundary line?
markers. Yes, no boundary markers were placed to date. As part of the scope, we did have to adjust some of what I think was part of the initial scope was to set concrete bounds, but in lieu of that, we'll be staking identified corners, major corners, or like key areas that the town has identified, and then we can go out and walk the area. But we've held off on putting in the stakes until we can have a scheduled site meeting in case any of them get
Moved.
relocated. Yeah.
We know. We get it. All right, but that it is within the scope. I understand that there's a cost associated with granite markers, but at least by way of staking it, whether it's with a flag or a pole or rebar or something, that's within the scope, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks. Those were my questions. Commission members? Hans, you're on mute.
Yeah, just wondering, you'd mentioned that it's right on the Quincy line. Is any of the potential work in Quincy? And do we need to, or is there a plan to coordinate with the Quincy Concom on those?
At this point, I don't believe we've reached out to the Quincy Conservation Commission, but we have reached out to Paul Costello, the town or city engineer from Quincy. And definitely will be recommending in the future of this project to continue coordination with the city of Quincy. So it's a small peninsula portion of this land that is a portion of like headed out to Black Rock where the fire pit is now is owned or is in the city of Quincy and owned by Blue Cross Blue Shield. So there will be some additional work when, building out this project with coordinating with the private landowner and the city of Quincy.
And Jamie, the agreement with the private landowner at this time gives us access for the surveying purposes all the way out through the line between Quincy and Milton, and then beyond it to the end of Black Rock. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And to Hans' point, I've also met with Paul Costello, and he has a clear understanding of the activity in progress and was very amenable to our getting together at the appropriate time and seeing what collaboration can take place between the town of Milton and the city of Quincy.
Any other questions, comments from commission members? This is really just an update, and we'll continue to get them, and we should have some surveying information within a couple of weeks and initial planning in 8 plus or minus weeks after that. So we'll keep it on the agenda. And as soon as we hear from Jamie and company, we'll put it back on our agenda. Kathleen O'Donnell, I see your hand raised.
She's on mute.
Um,
There you
yes,
go.
I actually just had a hand raised because Arthur showed me the copy of the license agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I'm concerned that the timing on the license is only until March. And listening to the engineer's plans, I'm concerned that the license from Blue Cross Blue Shield will expire before they've done their job.
Just so that Jamie knows, Kathleen is on the Community Preservation Committee and has been a champion of the project on that committee. And she's also a member of the Milton Zoning Board of Appeals.
Sorry, I didn't say.
No worries. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Kathleen. If it does expire, then we can renew the access agreement. But I hope that the existing conditions assessment we've been doing as part of the initial first task or first phase of the project will be completed. Like the survey work has been completed, so I don't imagine Zenith will need to go back out to access the area after March.
But you're aware of the date in the license?
Yes, we can we can, as we get closer to March, if we feel that we need additional time on it, that I've been in direct coordination with Deborah Kiernan from Blue Cross Blue Shield, who has been pretty responsive and helpful through this process.
Thank you.
All right, good news. Any other commissioners, comments from abutters or members of the public? I see none. I might be missing a hand, but I see none. So I think we're good to move on, and we look forward to receiving the survey data. Jamie, and we thank you very much for your efforts to date and encourage you to go forth and complete the project. Thank you.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, number 2 on the list is Nepra Salt Marsh project, which may have some overlap here. Sean, are you going to get us up to speed on this?
Yeah, happy to share a quick update on the things that NEPR has been doing. Can I share my screen? I've put together a few slides.
Sure.
Philip, can you help out on that?
Yeah. I have it on share. What do I do now?
I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a way you can enable me to share, but if not, that's okay. I can just give a quick verbal update and we can.
Well, actually, can you make him a co-host, Philip?
Hold on.
That's worked in the past. Oh, I guess not.
Hold on. I can't see where it says co-host. Sorry.
All right, Tom Palmer, you know how to do it, don't you? Can you give any advice or counsel to Philip?
I would have told him just what you did, that making somebody the co-host is what's worked.
Maybe I can
But I don't know how to do that.
Oh, wait a minute.
It gave me an option to request screen sharing, so maybe this will work. Oh, there we go.
I did something.
Thank
It
you.
looks like it's working. All right. Give me 1 second to pull this up.
We can see
All
it.
right. You can see the slides?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So I'll make this quick because I know there's a lot on the agenda for the rest of the commission, but just want to give a quick update on the things that NEPR has been working on related to the salt marshes over the last year, almost full year on some of our work. So we'll start with what we're calling the State of the Estuary Report, which is we got some money in the previous fiscal year through a DER earmark, Division of Ecological Restoration, to do some current condition assessment of the whole Neponset estuary, all salt marshes. Really kind of getting a sense of what the current extent of the marshes are, what condition they're in, and what stressors they're facing, kind of before considering climate change, to get a sense of what the state they are in right now, as we look to the future stressors of sea level rise and coastal storm surge. So we contracted with Woods Hole Group as our data analysis team and the team doing field work. And their kind of goal is to just give it a health checkup and give us a sense of what the marshes end up looking like. I'm just going to go through these pretty fast so I don't take up too much time, but I'm happy to answer questions about them. So mostly what they did, most of their data analysis was kind of a digital desktop analysis using existing satellite data. They did go through and ground truth enough to feel confident in these results. But what we basically have here are land covers of the two portions of the marsh that are, in Milton's area. So we call the upstream side over here up to 93, and then kind of the middle reach that goes through Milton to that same Milton-Quincy border. And really what they kind of found, and this is not surprising to anyone who's driven down 93, is that lower marsh side in Milton is completely dominated by Phragmites up through Gulliver's Creek. And in contrast, the marshes over on the Cortland Circle, Riverside Ave area are much more native marsh vegetation. In fact, they were able to kind of parse this out. I don't have the map with me now, unfortunately, but they were able to parse out to some degree of confidence what is high marsh versus low marsh on some of these areas. The other thing they were able to do is use some state data as well as some aerial imagery to get a sense of what the existing ditches are. So these are agricultural ditches and mosquito ditches dating back, to before before the turn of the century, last century, across the region. All these orange lines represent ditches that were dug into the marshes. And I've highlighted here in a red box on these graphs, which might be a little hard to see. These red lines are berms or other structures that were built up in the marsh. And this little red box shows an area in which they were able to do just kind of test soil pit to determine that this was, in fact, areas that have consolidated fill in it. So these were areas that were filled. As we know, the Dorchester marshes were as well, probably as part of the dredging of the stream channel in the construction of 93 and some of the other areas over the last several decades. So just kind of the big takeaway here is obviously there's a lot of ditching here, and that contributes to erosion, the spread of Phragmites in some of these areas, because it drains the salt water off of the marshes much faster. And it's one of the things they'll look into in terms of restoration projects in the future. Again, just kind of flying through it, but slow me down or come back to me with questions if you got them. But the kind of key stressors they found across the estuary are areas of tidal restriction, mostly in the downstream reach closer to the Boston Harbor. The middle area with that Riverside Cortland Circle area, they saw a lot of edge erosion, that those ditching areas causing significant problems, and obviously development encroaching into where the salt marshes would naturally be. In the upstream reach, it is fill areas that block tidal flow, and in the Milton side, that extensive amount of Phragmites. This is just kind of a little more detailed map of where they found specific problem areas to kind of highlight and keep track of. This is both assessment of current conditions, but also setting the groundwork for us to continue monitoring year over year to see how things get better, especially as we pursue some of these restoration projects. So things like the fill and the ditching, the invasive species, anywhere there's tidal restrictions, like up in Quincy near Billings Creek, and areas where the development is right up against the marsh are the major problems. And then kind of secondarily, some water pollution, water quality issues along Gulliver's Creek and coming out of the main Neponset freshwater area. And then just kind of laying out kind of the suite of potential restoration options that this may lead to in the future. Again, this is not in any way narrowed down yet, but it's kind of an exhaustive list. So ditch remediation and runneling kind of heals over those marsh ditches and promotes the restoration of salt marsh hydrology. Invasive species management is a little bit more difficult given how dominant Phragmites is. Things like no-wake zones or other forms of erosion control can kind of limit the amount that the marsh edge is eroding. And then some larger scale options like thin layer placement can help build up the elevation of the marshes in relation to the sea level rise that they'll likely be experiencing in the future. So that's kind of a really quick fly through of what we did this past spring and summer into the summer of 2024. And then the second phase of our work from then on has been under a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant that NEPR has been working with our project partners on. And this is, again, building from that development of current conditions of the marshes. We're working again with Woods Hole Group to develop a sea level rise model and to understand what the impacts of various various interventions and climate projections say about what the marshes will experience. Which ones will remain high marsh, low marsh, which ones may convert over to tidal mudflats, and what potential options and interventions could impact that. So this is a project we're working alongside the trustees of reservations, Woods Hole Group as our kind of modelers and salt marsh experts, and Scape landscape architects who are going to be working on some of our design work and conceptual designs in the future. And we're also working with Paul Kirshen over at UMass Boston as kind of a both a climate change expert and community engagement specialist on issues of climate change conversations. So we're currently in the midst of this work. We actually have a check-in meeting with our community advisory group at the end of this month Arthur is a member of that, so he'll get a far more detailed run through of this in a few weeks. But basically, the project is to engage the community groups. So we've got a group together of neighborhood association residents, staff from various environmental and non-environmental organizations across the watershed to kind of really get a sense of what the community thinks, as well as municipal staff. As I said, analyze the current conditions and the future conditions under modeling of sea level rise, and develop kind of a first best approach to intervening. So things like understanding whether the best approach is tackling the Phragmites in the marsh area of I guess it's southwest Milton relative to the estuary, or address issues of erosion on the kind of riverside area. And ultimately, the project that they move forward with is something we hope that the community and municipalities support. So it may include a variety of different actual interventions. And again, just going through this really fast, so I apologize if this is too much. What the current phase of this is, the current phase of the work so up to this date has been mapping some community assets and critical infrastructure. So these are all assets that Milton, Boston, and Quincy have mapped out in their hazard mitigation plans. We're going to take this to the community as well and make sure we're not missing any key residential, key areas that are important to residents. You know, there are certain things that don't necessarily always crop up in these reports that the community really values, and we want to make sure our attention is paid to. In terms of the modeling, and I'm sorry, this is a bit fuzzy. Again, I don't have the actual files. I'm copying from presentations that I have from Woods Hole Group, but essentially what they're doing is laying out a variety of scenarios where the marshes might exist. And these are kind of idealized scenarios just to see how they respond. So the first is, you know, present day current conditions. If the marshes could be if the marshes could keep up with sea level rise in terms of their elevation, if they could keep up with sea level rise in terms of where they migrate to, what might happen if they're actually drowned out and converted over to mud flats and in some areas, and high marshes converted to low marsh in others. So this is just kind of laying out the different scenarios. And again, I'm not the modeling team, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to pass those along, but I'll do my best to answer any questions about this. And just kind of what the projection scenarios that are running these through are the kind of sunny day conditions, normal tide events we'd experience in 2070, and then the 100-year storms of 2030, 2050, and 2070. So these are the kind of, they're basically laying out what various ways of looking at the marshes might be if, you know, if they maintain their elevation, if they're able to expand where they would naturally expand, and then run them through the scenarios to see what happens to them, you know, in 2070 in a sunny day, high tide, in a 2050 100-year storm. So the results of these modeling we'll pass along to the community as we get them. It's not quite done yet, so this is kind of a sneak peek of what they're going to be doing. We just want to run everyone through that. And then I want to kind of leave off here that all of this is kind of going hand in hand with our Community Advisory Council, which I said is made up of community residents, municipal staff, nonprofit staff from across the area to kind of make sure we're making sure we move forward on projects that have actual community support behind them, and not like, you know, a suggestion of, you know, managed retreat that wipes out State Street South in Quincy, for example, which does not have as much community support. We want to make sure that whatever we come up with as a plan is actually something that will get implemented, and it's not just a, you know, exercise in planning things out. And just to get a sense of where the schedule is, this is going to take us through about the midpoint of 2025, maybe a little bit longer because we've experienced a few delays on the federal funding side recently. But everything at the moment is sorted out, so we're expecting to wrap this up in July or August of this year. And I think I mentioned this before, but they're really kind of taking a broad sense of what interventions might be possible. So everything from dealing with phragmites to remediating those ditches to placing thin layer placement in the marshes along state guidelines to kind of manage the elevation of the marshes. And it's going to take a considered approach, working with the community, working with municipalities about what has support and what doesn't, and what would actually meet the community needs in these areas. So that's basically just re-summarizing that this is an important thing that we have communication at both the state level, municipal level, and community level at each step as we work through this process. And I think that's it for everything I have to present to you, and hopefully that wasn't too much time taken away. I did want to just throw out that we also have additional events that kind of address some things going on in the estuary. So we've got 2 King Tide events, so kind of places where we can talk about high tide and what it means and what it kind of shows us about the future. So there's one on March 1st, which is Saturday at Tinian Beach over in Dorchester, and March 29th in Quincy, most likely at the Adams Inn. The Neponset Spring Cleanup is going to be April 26th, which again is a Saturday morning. And we'll release our water quality report card in June. We're still working at the date, but it'll likely be at Martini Shell Park over in Hyde Park. So just throwing that out there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question, Sean. Thank you very much, first of all. That's very helpful to us. And this question may be a little bit unfair because yesterday, and I know you were a participant in this, but yesterday, Arthur Doyle and I had an opportunity to participate in the NEPRA-sponsored flood control, flood mitigation seminar, and I thought it was very helpful. One of the things that was mentioned last night, and one of the things that you mentioned today in terms of projections, in terms of when you just mentioned climate scenarios, you referenced 2070. And I know that's the date that people were talking about at last night's seminar. Where do those projections come from? I asked a question actually on the chat line last night because Ms. Ghosh had referenced the Cornell study. I assume that was Cornell University, but I don't know. Is that available somewhere for us? Because we're looking right now at projects that might pass the state standards today, but we're looking at some climate changes coming, and we're trying to get ahead of the curve. So I'm interested in where that data was collected, where it's available, where we can access it, number one. And number two, Ms. Ghosh actually, I think she said that the Commonwealth has accepted those projections.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what she meant by the Commonwealth has accepted.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'll plead a little bit of ignorance in that I'm not a modeler, but I'll make sure that I validate what I'm about to say. But my understanding is that the state has worked with Woods Hole Group, who's our consultant partner on this, to develop their coastal flood model. And that uses projections for 2070 that the state has deemed appropriate. And I'll admit that I don't know exactly where they come from, but I can certainly ask. If I can find, I'm sure I'll find out and I can pass that along to you. I'm sure that they're public information wherever they are. I do know that the 2070, 2030, and 2050 thresholds we put in this are also what were incorporated into the climate planning documents that were put out by at least Climate Ready Boston, but I think they're also included in some of the other hazard mitigation plans as well.
All right, I'm not sure that's going to help us if we're trying to access that data bank.
Yeah. I can find out where those come from, and I can pass it along.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yep.
Sean.
John, just really quick, the standard was adopted by EEA. So if you go to
I think
go to the MIPA site, you'll be able to find a good amount of information on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Hans. Any questions from commissioners? Members of the public, Hans, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I actually did have a question. So I'm just trying to understand a little bit better why, just the reasoning behind applying flood inundation to assess change in marshes. Flood being short duration, and it would seem that the marsh and the type of vegetation or the what's predominant in there would actually be more directly to sea level rise and the consistency there. And since the flood occurrences or the high water occurrences are would be less
Yes.
affected except for, the erosive potential.
Yeah, I think part of it is the erosive potential. It's probably primarily driven by sea level rise itself as the major driver, but it's an interesting scenario where this work is funded by the National Wildlife Foundation, so obviously our focus is also on the salt marshes, but we're also cognizant of the fact that what drives municipal decisions and what drives resident concerns are flooding of neighborhood properties, and especially damage to property. So we're kind of using both to understand what's happening. So some affect the marsh health directly, and some affect what damage is experienced outside the marshes. And so the model's meant to capture both of those.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, questions? I can't see the public here because of the screen sharing, but can anybody else see any hands raised?
And go ahead and stop sharing in case.
I don't see any. All right. Well, if there are no comments from commission members or the public, I thank you very much, Sean. That was very informative and very helpful to us. And we look forward to working with you closely on some of this climate action planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, folks, next on the agenda is number 3, 24 Wentworth Farm Road, order of conditions. And I see
Ned,
Ned, Jim Burke, and Deb, you're here as well.
right.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, John. And members of the commission, for the record, my name is Ned Corcoran. I'm representing the homeowner Jordy Strom and working our way through issues associated with the development of his dwelling and property at 24 Wentworth Road. I think we were here a month ago and Jim had some preliminary plans dealing with both the drainage to the Cultec area in the rear of the house, proximate to the edge of the wetland setback. And then we had a preliminary discussion or a discussion about how to infill the stone wall with some discussion. I think that led to the thought of chinking the rock, putting small pieces of stone in to chink the openings in the rock. Jim has developed a new plan. He's produced it today. He shared it with Deb. They've been back and forth a couple of times. So I'd ask Jim to lay out what he has produced, and then obviously look forward to hearing Deb's comments and questions and concerns from the commission.
Excellent. Any chance I can share the screen?
I'll try again. Hold on.
Excellent. Okay. Let me see here. Can you guys see that?
No, not yet. I mean, we see a screen, but there's no document opened.
I can see a plan.
Same here.
I can as well.
I see the plan.
I don't see a plan. I see like a screen with all of your icons on it, but nothing's opened.
Let's see.
I can see it, Jim.
You see that photograph, John?
No.
That's weird.
I know, that is,
It just looks like, somebody's.
I'm back to the plan now. Let me stop sharing and see if I can. Okay. All right. I see what that's not my screen.
I don't know whose screen it is.
That's probably mine. Hold on. All right, try again. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
How about now?
no, I think Phil's sharing his screen for some reason.
All right, hold on.
Well, I mean,
One
in a
more time.
nutshell, John, what I did is I went out there and I surveyed the backyard to find that topography that actually fits what you would like with regards to a level spreader. And you were right. You know, the grades that I picked up provide a break and slope that allows us to overflow a pipe into a stone level spreader. What we also did was increase the size of the infiltration system 3 times. So instead of the 2 chambers, we have 6 now. We contain 2 inches of rainfall before it starts to flow out of the overflow, which is a 6-inch pipe coming off the where is she? I don't know if some people can see that, but it comes off the observation port, and it works great. You know, the pipe itself can handle the 100-year event. Deb asked me to make sure that was taken care of, and I could confirm that. And that's basically what we're proposing for the stormwater control.
And then where does it discharge? Not into the wetlands necessarily, but near.
No, all the work is still outside the 25-foot buffer. What it does is I have like an arc, 18-foot long, 18-inch deep, 18-inch wide, 12-inch deep crushed stone level spreader. So the pipe discharges directly into that crushed stone, and that level spreader fills and spills over and does a laminar flow down gradient. But like I say, all the work is inside the above the 25-foot no disturb. And I did, there's still erosion control. So we located that along with the plan. And like I said, I think what you requested shared well.
All right, good.
Can you see that?
Yes, now we can. Yes.
Okay. So this right here, that's the overflow. Here's your observation port. Bottom of stone 73. This is your typical section. And here's your typical profile. And right here, there's your 6 units with the level spreader. Here's the observation port with the pipe coming out. It's actually, you can see how it's actually this 75.5 invert at the end of the pipe is actually below the stone. So it'll actually fill that stone trench and then spill over at the elevation of 76. What do you think?
Well, I think it makes sense. The elevation at 76, I don't know the significance of that because I was concerned because one of the putative as-built missed by about 3 feet. And I think at the height of the wall, they had it 78 feet, which is way off. It's probably off by 4 feet. So I just want to make sure that I know where these elevations are.
Yeah, so I actually hit the elevations in the backyard pretty well. The problem was that he didn't extend it beyond the erosion control. So what that did is it created this slope, 72, 73, 74, 75, and allowed me to pull the 77 out to cover that larger recharge system. And the 76 is right here, right under, right, the existing one. We're just pushing that out a little bit to give us a little bit of room for the outfall. And yeah, like I said,
Okay.
I thought it felt pretty good.
What's the elevation at the, as I'm looking at it, at the top of the diagram of the boulder wall?
The top of the wall?
The top of the wall, but over towards the neighbor's house.
Right here?
Keep going up towards the top of the diagram.
Yeah, it looks like 83 to 82 and a half.
Okay. All right. That's the one that was off on one of the so-called as-built that we received. That was my concern. I think I mentioned it last time, and I think it has been corrected.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, it looks to me that, I mean, like I said, the topography that we got from Dunn McKenzie seems accurate. So we topoed from this lower level from back of the house and all the way to where the CRL 371 is. So and these numbers, some of the spot grades are off a little bit, but I mean not by a lot, nothing more than 3 inches. But but I feel that this solution is it allows the additional impervious area to recharge, and at the same time, in larger storm events, it allows to bypass and released in a laminar fashion with that crushed stone level spreader.
All right, good. Any comments, suggestions, questions, commission members? Okay, that makes sense. And what about the wall? Do you have a plan for that one as well?
Yeah, well, I don't have a plan per se, but while I was out there doing the topo, I noticed this, right underneath the stairs. You can see the stairs. That's the top of the wall, that 82 that you're talking about, the corner of the house, and where that second story deck is right there. This is kind of what I'd like to do. I'd like maybe to drop that 3/4 stone, like maybe 6 inches, and come up with 2 to 6 inch stone, and fill the holes in a little bit better so it locks in that 3/4. But the 3/4, I think, will fill the voids and lock in the larger stones, and and when you put the 2 to 6 inch stone above that, it'll give it a nice aesthetic to it, in my opinion. That'd be my plan, and I can put a detail on this plan for the next time. I don't see this work happening until April, so I can put a detail for that crushed stone if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think there was a general consensus that the chinking of stones was better than the pressurized concrete last time. I'd like to hear again from Deb Keller and certainly other commission members, but
Sure.
I think we had worked our way into that concept as being acceptable. Any thoughts, comments from commission members?
John, this is Charlie. I would prefer to see the 3/4 inch stone than any sort of injection. There'll be too much hydraulic pressure if we try to seal the seams.
Got it. No, I understand that. And as somebody mentioned, it might have been you, Charlie, but or Deb, but somebody mentioned it last time that the pressurized concrete can degrade after the freeze and thaw cycle. Is that accurate?
It can, yes.
That's fair, yeah.
Okay. So Charlie, you're agreeing that the chink process is better than the concrete?
Yes, I would prefer to see that method used. At least it allows for leaching when there's any hydraulic pressure behind the wall.
Okay.
And I agree too, John, from going back many years ago when I worked several years on construction going through college, when we had to remediate areas that concrete had been used in, the water and ice just pushed it out. And it had to be all pulled and replaced with stone.
All right. Now, you did mention something that concerned me initially, and that is, I mean, this this boulder wall is basically holding back an area of land that contains the leaching field. And I was concerned with the leachate from the septic system going through there. But I think this was addressed, and I'll turn this into a question for Deb, but
Sure.
am I correct that the filter fabric, assuming it's correctly in place, would be sufficient to withhold the leaching from the leaching field?
Yeah, so I think there's two different barriers that have been installed, which I observed in the photos that were provided. One is the poly barrier that goes around the septic system, which is what blocks or restricts any breakout laterally from the septic system. And then there was filter fabric actually closer to the retaining wall. So I would suspect that that was more associated with the design of the retaining wall to make sure that you don't get the smaller fines in the gravel weeping through the wall itself and washing out what we'd be putting back in, which is the 3-inch stone and chinking. But also still allowing the water, if there's hydraulic buildup behind the wall, to weep out without causing damage to the boulders themselves.
Well,
Because you're gonna
the only comment though, that filter fabric that you saw is only at the top, and that was put in after we got involved.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
only
I'm
the
not
first 3 feet down. That doesn't go the depth of the wall.
okay. I'm not so worried about the filter fabric because I think that's designed with the wall itself. The septic system has a poly barrier surrounding it, which is stopping that lateral movement of the flow that goes into the field and forcing it downward. So that would avoid it from breaking out through the retaining wall.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Commission members? I think I appreciate you showing us the plans, but I think to dot the i's and cross the t's, we'd like to actually have the plans with the detail. And what you said, Jim, is that it can't be done until April anyway. So I don't think we're going to slow the process down by asking you to submit the plans for our review and approval for the March meeting.
That's our expectation, John, that we wanted to use tonight for a last sort of rehearsal, put the final plan together and file it on time for full consideration by the commission at the March meeting.
Okay. And Jim, let me go back one step to the drainage plan. And again, I'm just reaching back into my memory, but tonight you said that you could handle 2 inches of water with 6 chambers. And when we were talking before, I thought the original plan was for 1 inch. So if I'm correct, this is good.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't find design calculations, to tell you the truth. So I just kind of did my own.
Winged it.
Yeah. So that's my style.
Value engineering.
All right.
So we'll be
All right,
back
any
on
other-
for March 11.
That sounds good. Is that the right date? Ned, you probably know better.
Yes, March 11th is our next.
All right. That's good. So with the assent of, unless there are any other questions or comments or abutters, seeing none, that we'll continue this with the assent of the applicant until March 11th.
Right.
But thanks
Thank
all
you.
very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a nice evening.
All right. Thank you, Deb. Next, number 5 on the list is potential enforcement orders at or near 123 Granite Avenue. And
We missed number 4, John.
oh, did I? Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I did. I jumped ahead. Request for determination of applicability, DCR Blue Hills Reservation. And these are the signage placements, the kiosks. And I think, Ally, are you with us?
I
You
am,
are.
yes.
All right,
Hi,
perfect.
how's everybody
Hi.
doing? Good evening. I'm
Evening,
Ally Atandi, and I'm a Trails and Greenways planner at DCR currently. Used to be in the ecology program, and I've just been shifting around at DCR. So I'm here tonight to present the installation of 5 kiosks within resource area buffers, as well as the local bylaw buffer to vernal pool. And I didn't know if it was possible for me to share my screen just so I can give you an overview of where these kiosks are located.
That'd be great. Can you help, Philip, please?
Oh, I see the arrow. All right. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Maybe not.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank
there we
you.
go. That was quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're looking at the Milton section of the Blue Hills Reservation right now. So the 5 kiosks are, like I mentioned, located within either 100 foot of bank or 100 feet of buffer zone. 100 feet of BBW, sorry, or 100 feet of a certified vernal pool. Some of the kiosks are also located in priority habitat. As you can see, these are the little red stars on the map. I shared this information and the RDA, the full filing with the Natural Heritage Program, and they emailed back saying that we didn't have to do a formal filing with them. I believe I shared that email with Phil. Phil, please confirm. If not, I can forward it to you, but I do have it pulled out on my screen as well. So an email came in from Nicholas Walco, who's one of the review biologists at Natural Heritage, saying that we didn't require additional review for the kiosk installation.
It looks familiar, yes.
Oh. Go ahead, Phil, sorry.
I'm sorry, I said it looks familiar, but I'll double check tomorrow and let you know.
Okay, thank you. So the kiosks that are located within jurisdictional areas for the Milton Conservation Commission are the Foul Meadow kiosk, the Trailside North parking lot kiosk, the regional headquarters kiosk, Bugby Pass Path, and Braintree Pass Path. And I have a closer look, like these maps are really busy, but a closer look at where these are located. So the Foul Meadow kiosk is located over by the Burma Road section of the Blue Hills, which is technically part of the Neponset River Reservation, not the Blue Hills, but it's on the Blue Hills map. And it's located within 10 feet of the paved parking lot. The new kiosk is proposed in kind, same size, in the same location. We're also proposing a replacement to the kiosk located at the Trailside Museum North parking lot. So here's the Trailside Museum, here's the ski slope, and this is the Trailside North parking lot. The access road to the weather station would be up here. So this one's actually in really bad shape. I think you can actually push it down. That's how in poor condition the existing kiosk is. So that's another one that's going to be replaced in kind in the same location. We are proposing to use sediment control, all natural fiber wattles prior to doing the installation, just because that kiosk is within 6 feet of the bank of a stream. So we want to make sure that we don't have any dirt or material entering the stream during the replacement process. In this image right now, we have kiosk located over by the regional headquarters. The master EP map doesn't show the stream that we had previously flagged for the horse barn restoration project. And the stream kind of comes down from Hancock Hill towards the house farm. It actually enters a culvert, goes underground, and then it exits on the other side of Hillside Street, where we have the Bugby Pass kiosk, which is also located near a parking area. So all kiosks are located within parking areas. And then we move on over to the Braintree Pass Path location, which is right at the intersection of 28 and Chickatawit, which we're all very familiar with that intersection nowadays. So again, near the parking lot, beyond the gate, we're going to be doing another kiosk replacement at this location. At this location, we're actually going to be providing additional services in order to protect the rare species that inhabits that area. So if the kiosk is replaced anywhere between April and November of the year. Either myself or the Lieutenant Ranger Tom Bender has to be present just to make sure that there are no incidental takes of rare species. And this last kiosk is the one that's located within the locally regulated buffer zone. So in addition to requesting a negative determination as part of the RDA, we also requested a waiver pursuant to the Milton Wetlands Regulation Section 9, which requires the abutter notifications. I'm sure I was driving Phil and John crazy with my emails, kind of giving an assessment of how many abutters we would have to notify based on the bylaw for such a simple project that's significantly serving the public interest in general. So we were looking at something like 250 abutters required for notification. Instead of that, we ended up just doing the notification via the newspaper ad. One other idea that we had was we could actually post all of the kiosks saying that they will be replaced soon, just so that the public is aware that new kiosks are coming this year. So that's pretty much all I have. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to field them.
That's great. A good presentation, Ali. Thank you very much. It sounds like a very worthwhile project. And for the public's benefit, I want to make a comment on the request for a waiver of the abutter notification. In what I consider to be kind of an oddity, there is a difference between the state regs and the town regulations as it relates to a abutter notification. At the state level, when a project is over 50 acres or is on property, a project is on property that's over 50 acres, they have an exemption from the abutter definition that is 100 feet from the project line as opposed to the property line. But under the town bylaw, the regulations pursuant to the bylaw, the regulations say that it's 100 feet from the property line. Now, there are, I don't know, 7,000 acres to the Blue Hills Reservation. And
Yes.
the Milton Town regulations also say that the abutter notification does not pay any attention to municipal boundaries, which would require all of the abutters to the 7,000 acres that include 7 different municipalities. So that would be an impossible task. So you're estimating 250 abutters. I think it's even more than that. And they don't even, they're not from Milton. So I think this is an appropriate occasion, and we're going to need 2 votes here, but I think it's an appropriate occasion to use Section 9. And again, for the public's benefit, Section 9 says, and I'm quoting from our regulations, waiver of regulations. Strict compliance with these rules and regulations may be waived when, in the judgment of the Conservation Commission, such action would serve a substantial public interest, or when strict compliance would result in severe economic hardship, far greater in magnitude than the public interest to be served. In the latter case, the Commission may require the compensatory or mitigating measures be taken, even at an off-site location, to protect the interest protected by the bylaw. So I think in this instance, the mitigation would be the public notification through publication. And I think that was done in the Quincy Patriot Ledger. So I think we protect the public by notification, and it makes eminent good sense to exercise our waiver in this instance. And unless there are any questions beforehand, I'd offer a motion to exercise our discretion under Section 9, the waiver of regulations, to waive the requirement of a abutter notification, and rather than that, to rely upon the publication through the Quincy Patriot Ledger, which DCR has done. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? And we have to do this as a voice vote. Ingrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tom, you're on mute.
I vote yes.
Hans?
Yes.
Arthur Doyle?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
All right, and I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So thank you very much. That's the first vote. The second one is that I would entertain a motion to issue a negative determination with our usual special conditions that that be no equipment. I don't know if you need an auger, motorized auger to, dig the holes into the ground or not, but our special condition would be that no overnight storage within our jurisdiction within 100 feet of, and you've already mentioned the areas, and then no refueling within our jurisdiction. But I think that's the only special condition that we would need.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Doyle. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. Ingrid, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer?
Yes.
Hans?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes,
I didn't mean it, Mr. Bosworth. I didn't mean any disrespect here.
that's quite all right, John.
I
No
wanted
offense
to tell
taken.
him Mr. Doyle was my father, Charlie, so he's edging me.
All right.
My birthday is tomorrow, John, so I am aging.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So, Ali, thank you very much for the project and the good work that you do, and we appreciate everything that DCR is doing.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right, good
I
night.
just,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a comment before Ali leaves, and that is, I applaud the work that's being done. I just wanted to pass along that in a number of instances over the years, there have been conversations, I don't know what the duration of time is, about who owns what. Are those Milton forests? Is that state property? And so on down the line. And maybe this is something to which some expanded thought can be given over time, so that people coming through the town from elsewhere, as well as residents of the town, understand where DCR property is located in the town of Milton. They just pass that along for consideration.
Yeah, I will pass that along. And I know we have some boundary issues in some locations, though I think they're mostly in Canton. But I will pass that. I'll definitely pass that along to our rangers and our foresters, which we do have a forester for the South region, even for the urban parks. And they're the ones responsible for the boundary marking, at least. And then I can also pass it along to our visitor services representative to make sure that whenever they include information, let's say in the kiosk, they can also provide information about where the that this is state property, and essentially anything on the map is, with trails, is state property. So maybe making that clear to the public.
Thanks, Allie. Otherwise, we'll have some people taking it as Milton Town Forest, and I don't think you want that.
I mean, it's open space is open space, right? So long as they're protecting it and recreating appropriately, I think it's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is number 5, potential enforcement orders at or near 123 Granite Avenue. And I can report for the public's benefit that last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, Arthur and I had an opportunity we're actually looking at the marshland where the surveying was done, and that relates to the number 2 on our agenda. We were looking at the status of the surveying. And while in that area, we did happen to go to the parking lot at the American Legion Post and observed a significant amount of construction vehicles parked adjacent to the forested area between the American Legion parking lot and the expressway. And we've been there on a number of occasions over the last, 25 years, I guess. And while we were there and looking at the proximity of the construction equipment, many of which had hydraulic components, which is our concern, obviously. We noticed that there's a road that's been built back there by the state DPW. And I have no idea. It looks like the road to nowhere. It goes from their existing yard. It runs parallel to the expressway. So it's between the expressway and the American Legion parking lot. And some of that parking lot, I guess, belongs to the state DPW as well. But there was some equipment stored there as well. It didn't seem to be hydraulic equipment or motorized equipment with, petroleum products, but things like plows and, metal objects, certainly. So we came back, that is, Arthur and I came back and said, wow, let's take a look at some of our old records. And Philip was good to get some of the records for prior delineations of the wetlands. I called Tom Palmer and said, Tom, can you get us some maps of the floodplain in that area? Because it's a very, very sensitive area. And I think we're duty bound to be very careful of that floodplain and the resource areas that we protect. So I'd asked Arthur to, reach out to Paul. I think you're here on behalf of the American Legion Post.
Yes. How you doing, Mr. Cannon?
Hi, it's John. It's John.
All right,
I was
John.
kidding
How
about
are
that
you?
Mr. Doyle stuff.
Good to see you, Arthur, again.
Good to see you, Paul. And Dan?
And Dan as well. Hey, good evening, sir. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So again, by way of history, in the past, the Conservation Commission has contacted the Post and said, I think at one time there was some kind of a leasing or rental arrangement with Plymouth and Brockton, because some of their big buses were being parked right up next to an area which originally didn't even have a berm at the edge of the parking lot. I think it does now, but it was right next to it. So we had asked them to stop doing that, which they did. And then over the years, we've been back in that area. I think we were most recently probably, 5 years ago, when the Post built that picnic pavilion. That it's a slab of concrete with a roof over it. There was some property line issues as well as some wetlands issues on that one. But we invited you here to see what it is, because it appeared to me that you are within our jurisdiction in terms of leasing to, it looked like Mooney Construction. And then recently I saw further away, which may be far enough away from the wetlands, because we have a 100-foot jurisdictional line from the bordering vegetated wetlands. And I'll ask Tom to talk about the floodplain, because he's pretty familiar with that area. But with that kind of a background to put in context, we'd invite you to tell us what's going on there with the storage of the equipment.
So with the storage of the equipment, previously there had been, first off, we've come into this Legion Post. There's 5 of us now that came in, and we've taken the place over. We're trying to rehab the property as best we can. And we're just, there was previously a construction company that was occupying that space in there, which we have since evicted out of that location. And what we did in the meantime was we found proper suitable tenants that we felt could go in there in the same location that the previous tenants were in there. And we're just doing it to try and generate some income for the Legion Post there. Mr. Doyle was kind enough to provide us with this map plan here on what needs to be done, where the 100-foot wetland buffer is. And so we'll accommodate you guys, whatever you want us to, like, however we need to come into compliance, we'll do, but we're learning as we go here. And we're just trying to generate some source of income to help, increase like the looks of the property on what we can do. Because right now we're limited with funding, so we're doing our best.
All right. Something just flashed through my head. I don't think I need to recuse myself, but I should announce that I have in the past, like maybe the last 4 years, represented the American Legion National, although it relates to some New York cases. And I do not represent the Massachusetts department or any of the posts. It was only the national organization. Those cases, we just won an appeal maybe 5 months ago. And so all 4 of those cases have ceased. So I have no financial interest at this juncture. So I disclose that. I don't think there's a conflict. I have no financial interest in the Legion, but it was at the national level when I did. If anybody on the commission thinks that I should recuse myself, I will. I don't believe it's necessary, but please speak up if you do. Or Paul or Dan as well. So with that said, Dan, I don't know, did you want to add anything?
No, just piggyback of what Paul said. Mr. Doyle was kind enough to come out and kind of walk the area with us and kind of teach us some stuff about the property and buffer zones and where we need to be in compliance. And like Paul said, we want to do what we need to do, be in compliance, and all we're trying to do is raise some money. And we've actually began sponsoring some youth sports around the town, things that they hadn't done before. And these are just things that we feel like we need to do and what we want to do. It's why we're donating our time here. And so here we are. We want to be in compliance with any zoning, any just complete compliance.
All right, Arthur, you and I and Philip have been engaged in this, and I think Tom, you've seen some of the maps. They're pretty old. Some of them go back to 2012, because the commission has been there over the years. But Tom, you probably have the wider range of data and knowledge on this. Can you relate those? Ballpark, just eyeballing it from the maps that you have as to where that 100-foot mark would go. And the standard of reference that I would use would be the cell tower.
Yeah.
We can orient ourselves about that.
I did look at this site after you and Arthur went. And the issue as I see it is more than vehicles in the buffer zone, the wetland line is actually retreating because some of those heavy vehicles, I think, have pushed dirt into the wetland over time. The problem with that is when you fill the wetlands, just if you're just trying to make room to park your major vehicles, that space that's lost that water would normally accumulate in. So it has downstream impacts. It means when there's another storm, that space that used to hold water doesn't anymore. So
Tom,
whoever is down.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Can you distinguish between where the Mooney vehicles were parked and that roadway that came in from the state property?
Yeah,
It's almost the same area, but which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about Legion now. I haven't spoken about the park and ride lot, but both sites we're talking about are on opposite sides of this same shrinking wetland. And the Legion Hall is on the south side of it, and the park and ride lot is on the north side. And where does it drain? It moves to a ditch that's alongside 93, and that ditch runs north between the park and ride lot and 93, and that's where this water ultimately goes. At any rate, we're really only talking about half the issue when we talk to Legion Hall, but I think if it were mapped today, that wetland edge would be different than it was on the 2012 plan, because of the gradual pushing of dirt and filling of the wetland that has been going on. Now, I really don't know how long it's been going on, but while I was there, it seemed like there was a real edge that you could see between the dirt and woody debris that was pushed up and flattened out, and the wetland that was a couple of feet lower. And in that area, there was a fence that was pushed over as well, as I recall, chain link fence, partly knocked down. In between the Legion lot and the DOT lot, park and ride lot, the assessor's maps show another lot, namely a piece of an old railroad right of way that curves in between the Legion lot and the DOT lot. you can see that in the 2012 plan we were looking at.
I did.
And on that, on the 2012 plan, it showed the wetland crossing that railroad right away and just touching the Legion lot at one point. To figure out what to do now, I think we have to try to compare where the wetland is now to where it was on the 2012 plan. And maybe the first step would be to try to flag where it is now. That's, I think, a deliberate step-by-step approach. But I would say the issue here is not just the changes have taken place, but the fact that the people who are parking the construction equipment are not really aware of how they can't go over the edge. They can't push dirt toward the edge. I think they've been doing that. Maybe Paul and Dan know more about that, about what's happened over time. But it's a place that's sort of out of the way. And they had like a dozen vehicles, including some tracked vehicles with bulldoze attachments. If you're driving one of those around, it's hard to resist just flattening out the place where you want to park. Maybe that's all they've been doing. But while they've been doing it, I think the wetland is being gradually filled.
But Tom, can you ballpark it for us? Because I'm not good at estimating distances, at the 100-foot mark. If you use the existing wetlands, put aside for the moment your comment that they may have been filling over the years, because I think that Dan and Paul are the new guys on the block.
Thank you.
So I don't think they've got the history that Joe Manning and Thomas had for several decades ago. So let's just take a look at it now. How far do you think that I use the cell tower as a point of reference? Because when I first saw it, I said, all you need to do is put the trucks on the other side. Now, since that Sunday, Arthur, I've seen a different company's trucks parked on the Granite Avenue side of the cell tower. But that's what I had at first envisioned, just get them back away from the wetland area.
Well, that might do it. Yeah, as you know, the tower is in an enclosure, elongate fenced enclosure. So the distance
is that ballpark where the 100 feet comes out? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say maybe the 100 feet would reach to that fence. So it might make sense to park them on the other side, and they might be out of the buffer. But to figure that out, you really got to go there with a tape measure and say, here's a wetland edge, or hang flags along the wet edge. And then you could walk out 100 feet and say, this is a buffer. This is where no construction vehicles should be parked. That's doable now, but I don't know myself how formal this should become. I think if we were confident that the filling wasn't continuing and that the equipment was out of the buffer, then our job is done. But how do we make that happen?
Well, that is, I always look for the path of least resistance, and that what you just enunciated would be that if and for Dan and Paul's, from their perspective, you should know that our agent Steve Ivis is on an extended trip, so he won't be back until I think the first week in March. He would normally be the one to identify where the wetland edge actually is. But that's why I asked Tom. In my head, I had kind of ballparked it at somewhere around the cell tower. Actually, Tom's correct. There's a fence, so it would be the fence closest to the expressway. If you could get them out of there, I think that would satisfy us. It would mean that you'd have to be on the Granite Avenue side of parking there. But I think that's generally open, isn't it? I don't know. I go by it every day.
So go ahead, Dan.
So we have two utility contractors there on either side of the tower. And the reason why we just replaced a former contractor that was in there before. They just came in on January 1st. Now, the contractor that's on the left, he also provides snow removal, snow plowing, and other things. He's capable. Is there anything mitigation wise that he could do that could allow him or have us continue to have the revenue that we vitally need? We're operating on bare bones here. We couldn't afford to even have someone come in and plow. And that's kind of the deal we got with him, along with a revenue stream that we're getting. Now, he's a very reputable utility contractor. Is there anything mitigation-wise that he could do on that site to allow him to stay there? I mean, if he's got to move, he's got to move, and we understand that. But is there anything that they could do to make it doable?
Well, the lot itself is much larger than any buffer zone, right? I mean,
yeah,
the buffer zone is only a small percentage of the lot. Could it be possible to keep the vehicles out of that buffer zone?
I mean, absolutely. If we got to keep them out, we got to keep them out. And we got to do it. We got to do it now. But there's nothing mitigation wise on their end that they could do to help in that runoff.
The real answer is no. And the reason I say that is because we have, and I always refer to as our standard special condition, which is you cannot park overnight and you cannot refuel anywhere within our jurisdiction. And we just went through this issue, not just, it's probably 2 years ago now, with Eversource. Because right next to Font Bond, there's a transformer station there, and they were parking their trucks in there, and they were actually right up next to the wetlands. And I said, you guys can't do that. And they said, well, what about an emergency? Emergency, we've got no issues with, because that's public safety. We're not blind to public safety, of course. But we had to say to Eversource, you can't park them there. And we tried to even work with them to get an alternative site. And I called Chase Berkeley, and he said, well, they can park, if they need to, they can park them up in the DPW yard. So the answer to Eversource was, no, you can't park there. But I think Tom's comment is that I think you've got space where you could keep the contract with them, just have them park not there, but in a different section.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we'll go ahead and we'll move them right out of there.
If I can say something real quick, the reasoning that we had them in that location, Mr. Cannon, we thought it would have been the best location, perception wise, people driving by Granite Ave, so it doesn't look like a construction zone. They're off hidden in the corner there. The plan was to have the Granite Avenue portion that is rented out right now. It's going to be fenced off, hopefully in soon enough this spring. And what we were going to do was, previously, I understand, Mr. Palmer, you might be unaware, but there was a construction company in there for the past 3 years that we had evicted. It took us from April to September to get them finally out of there. And they had put up a fence in that location close to your wet zone that you had talked about there. And we had them remove that fence and take it down because we didn't want anything to do with that company there. And so that's where we just thought the optics of it all on Granite Ave might be better for the town if they were kept off to the side there. But we understand now that it's more concerning where the wetlands are concerned, as opposed to where the equipment is parked. So that was our basis for putting them over there. It's just out of sight, out of mind.
Right. No, and it's a valid consideration. But I think we've been very consistent and uniform in our application of that performance standard that we place upon ourselves, and that is to keep equipment out of our jurisdictional areas. Arthur, it looks like you've got a comment or a thought.
Mr. Chairman, based upon Tom's contributions and some of your comments, might we have a two-step process here? In the short term, move the equipment. In the longer term, have Steve review the wetland line. And I'm thinking in particular of the fill that's been pushed into that area, not from the American Legion side, but seemingly from the state Department of Transportation side. If there's a new wetland, if it's retreated, as Tom was suggesting, then that's going to mean that the lines, the buffers, two buffer lines are going to move back, which would give the American Legion post some additional room after the 100-foot new after a new 100-foot line is established, and give us a better understanding of not only for them what the actual wetland line is, but then for what we have to do with the Department of Transportation with respect to the mounding that we saw, fill, and other equipment that's on that side of the line of the old fence.
Right. And actually, that might make it worse for the Legion, because it looks like that road from DOT is actually blocking the flow. And Tom, correct me, I think that water is flowing north, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah. Well, and it gets alongside the highway.
It's going to spread back towards the Legion parking lot and towards the highway as well.
Right. So when we're working with them, we might have to have that removed.
Yes. Correct. That's correct.
Could I just ask the guys from the Legion, are you aware of a MWRA infrastructure going through your lot?
Yes, there's a water main, a large water main that runs. It runs in that marsh area through the back, and I think where that road area you're talking about, where the DPW is, you can kind of get in there from there, because MWRA they come by the lot every now and again, and they park their trucks, and I've asked them what they were doing. They explained to me that there's a large water main that runs through the back of our property, and it goes parallel with the expressway right up behind the state lot.
Yeah, I'm sort of aware of that. From your lot, there's a peninsula going in the marsh. It's just a sandy embankment that has cedar trees on it, and that covers that main, I believe. But I'm confused about how it goes through the rest of your lot. You're saying it might hook up with that road with a DOT. Yeah, I do know this. Yeah, go ahead.
So where we're talking like where the construction vehicles are, it runs in the back there, and actually you can walk. I've walked it before, and you can actually see it if you walk. I don't know, let's call it 75 yards diagonally from where you're standing in our lot. There's actually a hole you can actually see. I've stuck a 10-foot stick all the way down, got it down. I don't know if it's exposed or it's leaking, but there's a lot of water back there. I don't know if that is contributing to the amount of water that shows up in their lot all the time over there.
Interesting. I do know that MWRA has two ways to get water to Quincy. One is this pipe. I believe it's 4 feet diameter. The other goes over Milton Hill under Adams Street. Those are the only ways Quincy can get MWRA water. And we had an application within the last couple of years for MWRA to replace that pipe. Do people remember it?
Yes.
They were yeah. I don't recall whether they were going to put one down beside it or dig up the existing one, but it does go under the Neponset River over to Dorchester before it comes under the highway and through your lot. So it's an important piece of regional infrastructure. And that hole you saw, I don't know where that is. I did see holes on the embankment of 93 where the DPW lot presumably drains under the highway that avoids a river. I saw deep holes covered with tree roots that looked like a collapsed culvert going west under the highway. And I thought, this culvert has failed, and that's why there's always a puddle in the park and ride lot, because the water can't get out of there. I think ultimately the whole area is kind of a basin between Granite Ave and the highway. And according to the FEMA maps, if it floods, it's going to flood from the across the highway south of the interchange and then come all the way back toward the Legion lot, but only flood the area at extreme west by the highway, the lowest area. The rest of the lot is not in the floodplain. And so it's a sort of a mysterious area to me to understand how water gets in and out. And I thank you for your information about MWRA, because it's very interesting to me.
If you ever come down there, I can meet you when the weather gets better, and I'll show you where I think it's exposed, where you can actually see the water.
Really? Because they're drinking that water in Quincy. They probably don't know that it's forming a puddle in the Legion Hall.
Well, it's not. That's actually under the state lot.
I wonder if we're talking about the same hole. The one I saw was up against the highway. Is this different than that?
No, it's close to the highway, but
oh yeah, maybe we did see the same one. Well, I give you credit for getting back there. It's not easy to get back.
John, the FEMA map that Tom just referenced,
yes,
maybe the one that I sent you this afternoon, and to Phil, that Sean McCanty got for me yesterday.
Yes,
that does show exactly what Tom indicated. And if you look at that map, 123, the address of the Legion post is the area that is not included in the flood results.
I saw that, and I was glad to see that. So that brings us back to the wetlands delineation. And for Dan and Paul's benefit, what we're talking about, there are different resource areas that we protect. One of them is the floodplain, and the other one is the bordering vegetated wetlands. So fortunately, we can stick with BVW and measure from the wetlands 100 feet, and we're ballparking it at somewhere where the fence to the cell tower is. So in the short term, if you could move the trucks onto the Granite Avenue side, I think you can keep your lease revenue, working for you, but just get them out of our jurisdiction. And then sometime after the first week in March, probably the second week in March, Steve Ivis, who is our agent, can come down and he can flag the wetlands. And then if it gives you more space, and you can, as long as you stay outside of that 100 feet, we're happy.
Okay.
All right. So we've got a short-term plan and then a longer-term plan.
Yes.
But we're sensitive to the fact that, you folks are a valued neighbor in Milton, and we're trying to help you comply with the law and not throw obstacles at you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments or questions from commission members? All right. Hearing none, then we'll somebody, either Arthur or Philip or Steve Ivis, will contact you first week in March.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
thank you
very much.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is number 6. And for the public's benefit, we haven't been able to find the right contact person at DOT. So we're not forgetting about the road to nowhere, is what I call it, which runs from the DPW yard down to right up against the fence, right up against the wetlands. What it's there for, I don't have a clue. But as soon as, and we asked Marina Fernandez, was she going to look? I know she didn't know anybody, Philip, but was she going to reach out and see if we could find somebody to contact there?
I could ask her tomorrow if she could do that for us.
Okay. Otherwise, we'll have to go down and knock on the door and say, who's in charge? But we're not gonna forget that. So, for next, the March agenda, could you make sure that the Mass DOT or Mass Highway is on the agenda for the potential enforcement order there as well?
Sure.
Because the way at the end of that road, and I know that the so-called scene photographs that I sent around are very difficult to discern, but if you blow them up, the first set of photographs is looking, I'm standing on a mound of dirt that's probably 4 to 5 feet high, and I'm looking south towards the Legion post. And if you blow up the picture, you can see the fence, and just on the other side of the fence, it was frozen at the time, but there's water right there. That looks like the edge of wetlands, that they've gone right up against it. I'm not trying to play Steve Ivis on that, but it looks wet to me.
I think you're correct, John. And I think you can kind of eyeball the wetland by the thickest stands of Phragmites. It is true this time of year areas can be wet that aren't wetlands, but that Phragmites gives you a clue that that area is wet most of the year. It's interesting that, as I remarked, all that area was salt marsh once upon a time. So it's all default wetland. It's just a matter of how much fill they put in and whether that fill has subsided or not. And so areas that get sort of cramped and confined can become more wet because water flows off the higher areas into them. And that may be one reason that area has become more wet. I do recall that when I walked all through this area 30 years ago, working on the flora of the estuary, that back road did not exist. The DPW yard was there, but that cul-de-sac road that went through the thicket and back was not there. But it does appear in aerial photos that are 5 years old. So it wasn't built yesterday. And my guess is they were just looking for more room to put stuff. I don't know. That's my guess as to why it's there. Because you know that there's equipment on both sides, trailers. There's some, looks like some concrete walls that they use to confine fill as well. So they have been using it for a number of years just to spread out and make space for themselves. And is that any surprise? Not really, I would say.
All right. Well, our task, or my task, will be to find out who to contact at DOT and invite them, just as we did to the American Legion, and see if we can figure out a solution for it next month.
One more note. Did you notice on the state GIS that the DOT lot is called property of DCR?
I did not.
The Legion lot belongs to the Legion, formerly DCR land, but actually is owned by the Legion. But I think the area where the antenna is not owned by the Legion, according to these property maps, and neither is that railroad right away I mentioned, which has an address in Cincinnati or something for an owner. So it's a little confused, it seemed to me, about who owns what.
It is, but I believe that we had a project about somewhere around 2014 or 15. I haven't seen the plans I saw the 2012 plans, but it could have been that long. It could have been 2012, but I thought that was a DCR plan. And we were in back of the Legion's paved lot, between the lot and the expressway. And I thought that was DCR land. I know it is on the south side of the Legion. I know that's DCR land there.
Yeah. I didn't know that because it looks on the plan we have that it's a single lot, and in the current state GIS, it doesn't say DCR is the owner. It says the Legion, the National Legion is the owner. So did DCR sell it? I don't know.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be the National Legion.
It wouldn't, huh?
No, they don't. They
Yeah.
don't do that. They don't own land. The way it's set up, there's a national organization and then there are state departments. And then the departments authorize and issue a license to the posts. But the Legion is the national organization is a couple of levels up.
Well, now I recall maybe I did see a mass address in like Revere or something, but just for everybody's information, if you want to know who owns any lot in the state, you can go to the state data layer, the mass mapper, and click on that lot. And a little pop-up will come and tell you who owns it and what their address is. So it's a very useful tool for trying to puzzle these things out.
All right, good information.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 6, approval of meeting minutes from the meeting held on January 11th, 2025. I was late. I apologize, but I did send these minutes out, and there was a revision suggested by Arthur that's been adopted. There's another revision that he suggested that I failed to make, and that is in attendance. I failed to add that both Philip Driscoll and Steve Ivas were present. So I will make that adjustment and I'll send that to Philip tomorrow morning. But other than that, has everybody had a chance to read this? And the reason it's important and we're getting pressure to do it so quickly, and we should do it anyway, but because of the fact that number 3 on the list, it was 107, 111 Highland Street. That was the agenda item that we discussed about the revised plans to the memory care, and it involved DEP superseding order. Keep in mind that there's a Superior Court appeal under Chapter 30A, the Administrative Procedures Act. So our order of conditions was appealed administratively to DEP under the State Wetlands Protection Act, but it was appealed to the Superior Court under the town bylaw. That case is still pending, and Peter Mello has called me, and they're under a time constraint with the Superior Court to complete the official court record. I call it the appellate record, and these minutes have to be included in it for Superior Court purposes. So he asked that we do look at this and approve or disapprove, whatever, that we take action on it this evening. So I sent it out, and I referenced in the minutes the memorandum of agreement, and I think I included, yes, I did, my signature, because you'll recall that there was a third vote. We had, 1 that was insignificant change, 2 that we accepted the revisions, and 3 that I was authorized to sign on behalf of the commission. So you'll see just my signature there, but that was pursuant to the vote that we took. So has everybody had a chance to read it? And B, are there any comments for additional revisions? Tom, your hand is up. I don't know if that's.
I have read it and I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any other revisions? I think Ingrid, Wendy said she read it. I know she's not here tonight. And I don't know whether or not Charles and Hans had an opportunity, but we do have some time pressure to get this either revised or approved.
You got my email, John, right?
I did. You read it and approved it.
Yes.
Yeah,
John, I
given that
don't have a
wasn't-
problem with it.
Okay.
It all looked good to me.
All right, Hans?
And I'm not sure I should vote on it. I wasn't at the meeting and I haven't had a chance to review
Okay, no, you're right.
the
You weren't at the
transcript, so
meeting.
I don't think I should be, yeah,
I agree.
okay.
All right, well then, with that all stated, I would propose a motion to approve the minutes for January 14th as distributed earlier today, with the additional proviso that I add in attendance were Philip Driscoll and Steve Ivas. And that would go at the very top.
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right, Ingrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Arthur Doyle,
Yes.
John Kieran, and I vote aye as well. Charles, I'm sorry, I don't see you, so I went by your
That's
name.
all right, John. Yes.
And Hans, you're going to abstain because you were
Yes.
not present at the meeting.
Abstain, yes.
All right, so that's the unanimous vote with, well, one abstention. So the minutes have been approved. All right, that takes us to number 7, new business. Any new business?
I have some, the MACC Environmental Conference is in 2 weeks. If anybody wants to sign up, let me know. Arthur,
I
have
do.
right, I just need to know what you want to sign up for.
Got it. Okay.
Can you forward the menu of
I
offerings?
could tomorrow, yes, definitely.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Anybody else? Arthur, you going? Tom? Charlie?
I'm on the fence. I don't know. I need to be persuaded.
You could give some of the seminars there. How many do you think you've been to?
I've been to like 3 or 4, I guess, including the good time we had last year. That was fun. Me, John, and Arthur. We were like comedy team.
All right. Well, yeah, Hans, I'm not pressuring you, but Hans and Charlie, if you have an interest in going, just make sure you tell Philip that, okay?
Is it Holy Cross
Will
again?
do.
It is Holy Cross. Yes.
Yeah, I've been to a couple as, both attendees and also man tables as a consultant. So
I've been to a few too many.
yeah.
Over the last, 33 years.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Any other new business?
I actually have 2 things.
Yes, go.
One, there's I think a webinar tomorrow. I don't know if anyone noticed that from MACC. It's on
About artificial turf?
yeah.
Is it 12 o'clock?
Yeah, I've signed up for it, and I'm sure others have. And I think that actually referencing the Milton Turf Project. So at least that's what I was told. So
Yes, Arthur, yep, and Hans, Arthur and I were talking about it earlier today. Can you send me the link? Because I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. Or Hans, if you've got the link, can you send it to me as well?
Yeah. Yep.
I knew about it, but it's not in my calendar, so I must have dropped it somewhere.
Yep,
But I
no.
definitely would like to attend that.
Yep. And then
That's 12 o'clock, isn't it?
yes, at noon time.
And
the other thing I just wanted to bring up was just a question I had mentioned to you, John, earlier today about the work that's going for redevelopment of the Franny's Corner gas station, which I think a lot of neighbors are in favor of the project, and it's probably going to be a good thing. But I guess I had a question of whether or not the project is within jurisdiction. Seems to be within 200 feet of stream, and the work is already started. I didn't know if that was something that had been signed off by the Conservation Commission, or if it was something that kind of slipped through the cracks in Steve's absence or something like that.
yeah, I was unaware of it, and it probably is jurisdictional. We've been on the Harlem Street extension, a year and a half ago or so. I forget the number of Harlan Street, but it's right across from where Kevin Keating lives. Because he actually came out and said,
we were at 31 Highland.
We're at 31? Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Right. So that's the vicinity, and there's a lot of wetness there. Because we permitted, this is years ago, a number of the houses. As you drive down that extension from Canton Avenue, the houses on the left, we permitted the last few. That
Franny's Corner is right adjacent to where that DCR dam removal project was.
Right.
Right adjacent to that.
And by the way, I was there with Ali Shandi. She asked me to help her when she was flagging the wetlands there for that dam removal. And one thing we noticed was between the stream channel, which is channelized there through a stone trench, and the gas station slash power equipment property, it was obvious that fill had been pushed in toward the stream in recent times for whatever reason. It was obviously fill because instead of trees growing on it, it had invasive weeds, and it didn't have a typical soil profile underfoot. Instead, it was kind of soft and full of organics. So that has been an issue there in recent times, at least how that area is protected. So I think it may be a good time to look at a plan for what's going on there.
I think
Philip,
at a minimum,
can
we
you
just
ask
wanna-
the building department
Sure.
what's going on?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think just at a minimum, we want to make sure they're getting some erosion controls out there and have an understanding of what the limit of work is going to be.
Do you know what the project is?
So as of right now, it looks, I haven't driven by there today, but it looks like they're replacing the gas pumps and, taking up the island that's in the middle there. So I don't
But is
know.
it still going to be a gas station, or do you know?
I don't know. That's part of the reason I'm asking. That I'm wondering if yeah, we need to get more information there.
And were they pulling tanks?
I'm sorry.
Well, were they pulling tanks?
It didn't look like they were pulling tanks. It just looked like they had. So like I said, I hadn't driven by it today, but it looks like they were digging up the pad, and it looked like the start of a tank yank, but I don't know if it actually is gonna, if that's what's proposed.
All right. Well, they need a fire department permit for that.
Sure.
Right. Wow. Okay. So, Philip, can you kind of email everybody tomorrow if you can find out anything from the building department?
Absolutely.
They've got to have something. Demo
what's that?
permit or something.
Right, I'll see if they have any information. Everything I have, I'll email.
Okay, good. Thanks for keeping your eyes open, Hans. That's good. Anything else for new business? All right. It looks like we're doing all right. 9:30. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else, the motion to adjourn? Yes.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second it, Tom. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Good night, all. God bless.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Right.